incredible. And I always say to the kids, like, if it's been done by someone else, then it's fair game. You can do it too. If it hasn't been done by someone else, then maybe that's why you're here, to do something that has never been done.
That you just heard is Geraden Kennedy, founder of Gudjela, an Indigenous education organisation based in Alice Springs, delivering programs that reconnect students who've disengaged with school with who they are and important skills of self-regulation, resilience, and more. If it's one thing to take away from this episode, it's Geraden's big damn heart and his passion to give back to community. If you're a teacher, particularly in an Indigenous community, please stay tuned and listen on. Also, please do note, Geraden kicks off the episode with his own personal story, which involves triggering subjects like addiction and suicide. You're in for a hell of a conversation, so please enjoy. For people who don't actually know you or your work, Geraden, love to ask, first of all, what is your story and why does Gudjela exist?
Growing up, I always experienced a lot of physical abuse, and that kind of led me to think that there was something more that needed to be done for the kids here in Alice Springs and the surrounding communities. Growing up, it really disconnected me from the education system because I was dealing with my own trauma and past. Like I was adopted when I was about 3 months old, and that was from a family. The reason that I was adopted was because there was severe domestic violence in that. So I came here to Alice Springs and then grew up just here in Alice because of what had happened to me when I was young. And I didn't realize that until I was older. I wasn't able to really be present. I was always really anxious or depressed, and my emotional states would swing from low to high, and I didn't understand why I couldn't concentrate in class and that. And it was because I found out when I went to spend a lot of time with psychologists that it was because I had so much built up, like unresolved trauma. So by the time that I was at the year 10, 11, 12 stage, I was just very, very angry. And I didn't know why I was angry. And like I went to the psychologist and did like some anger management
Yeah.
sessions. And in the sessions, I was like I don't want to hurt other people. I'm not like an angry person like that. Like, so I didn't understand what it was. And then later when I was going to university and that, I started to become really depressed. And then I found alcohol and drugs, and that became a long battle with addiction that I was just using to try and escape my own mind because I just felt so afraid to sit there, just be with myself. Like I was terrified. Yeah, so I ended up becoming suicidal while I was at university, and that was a huge, huge battle to overcome. After spending all that time with psychologists unpacking my own mind, like I finally felt a love for learning and education because I wanted to learn about why is my mind like this? Like why am I sitting here? And it would be like a Friday afternoon, and no matter how much I look in the mirror and say I do not want to walk out that door because I know where that leads, I would
Mhm.
still do it. So I just studied more and more about psychology and just basic neuroscience to understand why is this happening. And then as I started to learn more about how patterns form in our minds and why when our prefrontal cortex are burnt out, it's incredibly difficult to make rational decisions, and we just fall back to what we've been doing, which is a way for our brains to conserve energy and send us down a path that we can predict, because our bodies like to be able to predict things and our brains like to be able to predict the future so that we know, oh, this is going to be safe, this is good, even though if it's a terrible habit that we're going down, that is the pattern. So understanding more and more about that, it started to link more and more to what I was seeing in my surrounding environment in Alice Springs and in the greater community for the my people, Indigenous people of Australia. Like I'm from Arnhem Land and the Kimberley, but I've never been able to meet my birth father and that side of the family, like my birth mother she was French and she'd just come over to Australia, got knocked up and was in an abusive relationship. So I've made contact with her, but it's incredibly difficult to be severed from my connection to my own culture and my own heritage and that. So you see so much in the streets and in the communities around, which is terribly upsetting. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to start Gudjela was that after about 7 years spending with a psychologist and unpacking my own trauma, was I walked out this one day and for the first time in my life, I just heard the breeze flowing, I heard birds chirping, and my negative internal monologue had stopped. And I was like, is this what normal people feel like? Like they don't have a constant voice in your head repeating the most terrible things you've ever done
Yeah.
and then and then trying to guess what the most terrible things could be in the future so that you're prepared for it, because it was just non-stop. I never had peace since I could remember.
Mm.
And when I finally found that peace, I thought I have to help other people to find this because it's doable. And if I made it back from that place, like wanting to end my life and not wanting to continue, then it means that I can help other people to do that. And that's what I kept trying to say to myself as I was healing, was that if I can make it back and I can share the things that helped me to make it out of this place, then it's going to be worth it. Because if I can help one person, then it means all this suffering is
Mm.
for something that is necessary.
With so much
Yeah.
heart and with so much empathy, like that's what you need to be able to connect and understand the issues. And
Mm.
especially with your work, you work with students who have disengaged from traditional schooling in some way or another. And I guess to their stories, like have you noticed common trends, common things that have led to this disengagement, whether it's mirroring things that you've experienced yourself or something that's going on now?
A lot of the time, yes. So everyone will have their own personality and the different things that construct their identity. But when it's with Indigenous people, everyone is carrying intergenerational trauma. And then when you've got, because we don't just work for Indigenous, like we are Indigenous Corporation, but we work with anyone who's traumatized or neurodiverse or has experienced adverse childhood experiences. And the same narrative in the story that I always seem to hear is that teachers they're either ill-equipped to work with these students and overcome those different challenges, because teachers when they leave university they're not given all these different strategies to be able to work with various different students. You're taught how to write and create curriculum and then align it with the Australian version 9 right now, general capabilities, cross-curriculum priorities, and the AITL standards. So it only takes experience and working with these different students and understanding how can I help these students to learn while I'm also helping all these other students in my class. Like I feel that the classrooms are rather too large to be able to get to everyone. The common thing that I see with the students is that a lot of them feel like they've been overlooked or not given the chances that they deserve and not given the time that they need, that no one really cares about their story and who they are. They've just been pushed along and then the next teacher comes in, and because they've got barriers between social connection with other people first. So I see a lot of students, if the teachers don't make an effort to take down those barriers and just start to go, then you've got a lot of students who are just shut off and they just don't want to open up because they feel that, and this is just generally speaking with a lot of the students that I've worked with, is that they've felt that the teacher doesn't care about them and doesn't give them the time. And there's a example that I can give. One of the teachers in a school that I was working with asked me to come in to help her better work with the disengaged students. And So I went in there and I sat down with the students that were supposedly not the ones listening or engaging in that. So I just started to observe and see what was happening. And so the teacher asked them all a question, and then the students started to reply. And then halfway through the answer, the teacher said, "Oh, no, that's wrong. This is the answer." Like, it didn't give the students time to explore and reason and get to that answer. Because when you're working with traumatized people or neurodiverse students or people that have been overlooked, they're going to be a little bit slower. They're not going to be thinking as quickly, especially not as quickly as teachers who have gone through that problem multiple times and understand the answer. So it's, yeah, very prevalent that people don't give them that extra little space to let their minds work. And so after I spoke to the teacher and I said, and I asked the kids, I was like, "So what happens?" And they said, "She never listens to us. Like, she just keeps talking." And so I spoke to the teacher after and I said, "I think all the students agreed that if you listened a little bit more," and as I said that, she said, "I do listen to people." And that might be that might be her personality, or it might be that she's incredibly stressed and
Mm.
she's overworked and she wants to get to the answer. So her mind is rushing and it's, "I do listen, like I'm trying." Do you know? Like,
Mhm.
the other thing that I see with the mainstream education is when you're working with traumatized and neurodiverse students, it's that the classes are far too big. I've seen the best results, especially when you're working with people who are far behind the bar of the year level that they should be in, is that if you've got a smaller group, then you're able to catch them up because you can spend that time with the students and that. And it's
Mhm.
just so upsetting to go to multiple different schools and see that it's the same curriculum constantly being rolled out, and you can
Yeah.
see that in certain areas it's not working. Another reason why I created Gudjela is because while I was at uni, I was given an assignment. It was behavior management assignment, and it was like, "What is your behavior management plan?" And I tried to have a conversation with the lecturer after, and I said, "But no one likes to be managed. So the second that you try to manage someone and
Yeah.
you try to have that authority, it just puts up a barrier." And I was like, I was friends with all of the cheeky kids. I was a cheeky kid. Like, if
You saw
second,
yourself in them.
yeah, I was like, that doesn't work. Like, you're literally, I didn't say this, but I was like, you're literally instructing all of the cohort right now to write behavior management plans that work for people who have had nice childhood experiences, and
Mhm.
they've come from a family where they've got both parents, or it's a situation that they haven't been placed in an environment where that you're constantly worried or anxious or not sure if you're gonna eat that night, like, or the parents have gone out drinking and stuff. Those behavior management plans work fine for the people who come from stable families.
That traditional degrees, I guess, to lead to education. I've been there as well, and there was this subject called promoting positive experiences, and I was so excited. It meant, like, to me, well-being and like, oh, how do we create a positive experience? And I had no idea that it was basically behavior management, but converted into like the positive experience. And it so happened that this was the subject that I did most poorly in. Like, I didn't understand. I'm like, I can't just, force them into submission to do something or like have these amazing
Mm,
behavior management strategies. Sure, they do work in the classroom short term, but we're thinking like relationships. We're thinking,
mhm.
how do we long term gain the respect of this student? Because I have actually
Yes.
heard many times of the students, you don't need them to respect you to or you don't need to respect them, like that sort of thing. They just need to learn what I'm teaching. And I have heard that.
Oh,
Yeah, I know you're
yeah.
looking at me like, oh, and it has happened. I've heard it before, with this like misconception of authority versus
Mm,
what you're saying, like
yeah.
your buddies. I mean, there is a relationship, and I guess it's easier, especially in Alice Springs. In Victoria, for example, dynamics between teachers and students, like there's more distance, I've noticed. But
Mm,
that
yeah.
buddy idea can still be achieved very in
100%.
different
Like,
ways.
when I was on my teacher placement, second teacher that I had said, make sure you don't smile until March. And I was like, what? And he was like,
Heard that.
he was like, he's like, don't smile till March. And I was like, "Eh, why? He's like, because then they won't respect you. And I was like, what? Because coming from like my own childhood, it's if you've got an authority figure, then it might mean you might connect to danger because your only authority figures in your life have either been family members that are violent or they drink, or it might be a bad experience with the police, or it might be another bad experience with another teacher that was just like, be quiet. So if you do that, then you're not signaling to the students that you're a human being. And students want to connect, especially when they're young, with other humans, because then it's like, okay, this man or woman, they're a human in front of me. They're giving me an experience based on something that they deem important. One of the things that I also say to teachers when they ask, how do I work with these disengaged students? I say, do the students know why you're there? And they
Mm.
go, what do you mean? I'm a teacher. They're like, yeah, but the kids don't know that. A lot of the kids just get dropped off at school. And it's like, why am I here? Only kids who have been taught and shown the benefits that education can give you, like all the doors to opportunities that it opens, unless you have that ingrained in your mind, like you're not at school because you want to become a doctor. You're there because you get dropped off in the morning.
Mm.
You don't know why you're sitting in class.
Yeah, it's
Difficult thing.
interesting to see that because what they aspire to and
Mm,
the level of education in their family prior to them being in school. Like
yeah,
there's this huge removal because we're quite privileged. Like I would say overall, generally, people who haven't come from trauma backgrounds or not like intergenerational trauma generally have people in their lives who have gone to some sort of education and have, in a way, pitched
yeah,
to them just by their jobs, just
yes.
by the fact that they have
Hmm.
done education and have led to something, that's
Mm,
why they're there. It doesn't even have to be explicitly said, it could just be through observation.
no,
But when I was
exactly.
working in an Indigenous community in Tennant Creek, a lot of these students didn't have those role models in their lives. At least there were
Mm,
people who had jobs around them, but potentially arrived later in town or aren't family, perhaps. If
mm,
their immediate family doesn't emulate something that other people like me going into community say is important, well, that
mm,
is mismatched. It doesn't make sense to them
exactly.
why they
Yep,
should do that.
yep,
Because what you're saying is we need to know the why. We need to know, students need to know the exact reason, how it could lead to the future in some way, and also how they can see themselves in it. Because we can pitch to them
yes.
why it's important, but if they can't see that they can achieve it, well, then that
Hmm.
defeats
Yep,
the whole motivation.
yep, 100%. If your mum and dad went to school and they were like, they didn't succeed and it didn't lead to anything positive for their own life, what do you think the message is going to be when they're dropping their kids off? What do you think the message is going to be when the teacher's calling and saying, hey, they're not behaving? It's going to be, I don't care. Why would I care? Like I don't care about school. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
it's if you've got generations and generations that haven't connected school, and this happens in any community, if you don't connect schooling and education with something positive that can happen in the future, then you're going to be disconnected. It's with anything. If you're not emotionally wanting to be there and do it, you're
Mhm.
not going to be ready to learn. You're not going to be ready to take in what's happening around you. You're
Mhm.
going to be distracted, be looking for excuses or things to do to take up the time because you don't see it as being relevant in your own life. It's very difficult because a lot of teachers that have come from educated backgrounds where they understood, I go to school because I want a career. It's unknown unknowns. You don't even know why these kids aren't behaving like and why they're doing. So I think that connection before correction. One of the most important things that I did on my third year placement after this, I was like, I don't want to do education anymore. Was one of my prac teachers said, most of the class is fine. There's this one kid, and I'll just use pseudonym Timmy. Like
Good
Timmy
old
won't do
Timmy.
any work. Don't worry about it. I won't mark you less on that. And I was like, what? what do you mean? Like, I didn't say that obviously, but I was like, oh, okay. And they went away for a week while I was on placement. So I like asked the other lads in the class, I was like, oh, so what's Timmy's deal? What does he do? Like, why doesn't he like the other teacher? They said, oh, like it's pretty messed up at home. The dad's a bit angry. Doesn't do anything to Timmy in that, but he's just, like an angry person. My prac teacher was a male, so I thought, oh, maybe there is a bit of a disconnection between authority and that straight away. So then I found out Timmy had a rugby game on the weekend. So I went down and watched him on the weekend and cheered for him. And after the game, he's like, "Oh, sir, no one's ever come and watched me." That next week at school, the second another student would talk, he'd tell them to shut up and listen to Mr. G. And I was like, behavior management done. He's doing the work for me now. So, like, if you create a great relationship with the students and you show that you actually care about them, because you need to align what you're saying with also your disposition and your actions and what you're doing. A lot of the time, you'll see teachers say, "I really care about you and I want you to do this." And this is an experience I've had. One of the teachers that I worked with was saying, "Students, you need to do your assignments. I'm not going to say it again." And then sat down at her computer in front of the class and complained about the professional development she had to do because she had an assessment to do for it. I was like, I don't know what to say in this situation. Like, what? Saying how important education is, then complaining about her own chance to grow and learn. Like, one of the most things that's crucial in our own development is coming to the conclusion and the understanding that if you go camping and say it's a week and you're sweating and it's been incredibly hot, you'll start to smell everyone else. You'll go, oh, they don't smell that good. But it's not until you make the effort to smell yourself do you realize that, oh my goodness, I smell just as bad, if not worse. And yet we still perceive the outside world and other people before we reflect and look at ourselves honestly. Because if we're honest in the sense that we want to better our education too, because that's important for us to grow, it'll radiate out and the students in front of us will see, oh, this person cares about learning, cares about us, and then is also an honest person. Like, they're telling us facts of how things are, how life is, and I trust them and I believe that. Whereas traumatized and neurodiverse people, they might hear the words that someone says to them, but the actions need to align with what the words are saying. That's what I kind of mean with the connection between honesty of what you're saying and then also your actions, the integrity to follow through with that. Because in difficult homes and households, and you've got people saying that they'll do things or they'll be there or they'll rock up and or like this is important or that you should follow this or I'll be there, I'll pick you up, I'll take you, and then something happens and people don't show up. People lose faith in the words that people say in front of them. People in those situations, they want to feel and have that connection with someone who is honest with themselves, lives with integrity, compassion, empathy, and genuinely is there because they want that person to succeed. If I bring it back to the conversation with the teacher that I said, why are you here? Do the kids know why you're here? She just expected they should know because they're at school. Once she just honestly said to the kids, I've been a teacher for 20 years and I do it because I want to see you all succeed in life. That connection started to be formed immediately in that. And if we're being honest with ourselves, would you like it if you stepped into a new workplace and then the boss didn't smile and just gave you orders and told you what to do for the first couple of months to gain your respect? Or would
Till March.
Yeah. Like, would you connect better with someone who was like reflecting their own personality and how they like to construct their values and how they like to be treated, like treat other people how you want to be treated. So if you can make that connection with the students and you are authentic about like how you structure your own life, straight away they can go, okay, wow, like this person there, I can't see any way to kind of not listen to this person because people are looking for reasons not to listen to you. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you're already disconnected and there's barriers up. There's already a wall there. You come in, you're telling people to do work, or you're you're following the exact curriculum that has these due dates and you're not going to budge, or the kid just goes, all right, well, I'll put up another wall. See you later. I'm really good at shutting people out because it's the way I protect myself. I don't want to let people in. But when we're authentic and we use honesty and ourself and who we are, it forms an incredible connection.
Sometimes just when you're a teacher in the classroom, it is so hard because I was teaching a remote community. I'm building these relationships. I'm like the same height as the students. Like it's easy for that to happen. I'm pretty short. And going to their footy games, playing footy myself. And then in the classroom, I'm trying to get students to listen, like, hear me out. This is what we're doing. And some of them, I'm a science teacher, I'm an English teacher. Science was particularly hard with chemistry. Like, why are we doing this? I don't care. And just running amok, running out of the classroom, coming back in if they want to. How do we start to combat that? Because that is us trying to develop relationships, but it doesn't seem to go the way that we plan.
No, I completely get that. And when I was saying before, I didn't mean to negatively impact any teachers that are listening, because I do understand that 100%. There are levels to this, as you would be well aware. Would the students have been in and out of school? They're not at the level that they should be. Like, what's the demographic for that group, for that cohort?
That particular group had been consistently in school, actually. So Indigenous, been in school consistently through primary school and high school, had really great attendance rates, but were questioners and were sort of system resistors. And so their personalities are quite strong.
So I'd firstly start on, what were the habits that you were seeing with those students? Like would it be the second that science, then chemistry and that they jump out? Like, what would you see? When would you start to see the students becoming disengaged?
Already coming into the classroom. So there's already an idea of what the classroom is, I noticed. And especially with a topic like science, they responded more positively to maths. And I have a feeling it's because it just made sense. Whereas science, especially with atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, like we're going really specific to the minute.
I love all that.
Yeah, that's great.
Quantum mechanics, and that is so fascinating. But no, I completely understand. What was the level between kinesthetic, auditory, and the other styles of learning that you were teaching, that you were giving the students in that class?
It started off, especially with chemistry, it was a mix of video, a mix of, and you could tell worksheets weren't optimal, really.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, exactly. Which I noticed, like, after trying different things, that was probably the least effective, unless if it made complete sense to begin with. Modeling, like figures, worked.
Yeah.
Kinesthetic, what you were saying, that really works. And then bringing them outside, that ended up being my goal, was to just as many lessons as I possibly could, once it went into physics, once it went into earth and space, to just take them outside. And all of these sorts of behavior management strategies I didn't need to employ anymore. It seemed like in the classroom I needed to use them, and then outside, whether on excursion, it just completely changed the atmosphere. I wonder, because partly due to perhaps how they see the classroom, the emotions that they already feel going in there, but also a new thing like going outside and going to this different environment that they don't usually get to go to. And, you know, I'd take them over to, there was this agricultural center quite close to the school, so we'd take them there. I mean, there was more space to run amok, but they didn't choose to. They were just pretty mellow, and it would have been interesting for the school to see them that calm as well.
One of the easiest things that can work with Indigenous people, and I'm guessing other people who, if you look back, they haven't spent a lot of time inside this structured classroom, in that the research shows that kinesthetic learning is one of the best ways to get through to students that come from different cultures that have actually spent a lot of time learning outside on the go. Another thing too, when you've got students like that, and you said that they love getting outside. The best strategy that I've ever been given was by this incredible lady, Marianne Root. She's here in Alice Springs, and it was just drawing a love heart. And this is what I use with all my kids. I just draw a love heart on the wall, and then I put above it sports heart. And I say, if we don't do the work, a little crack will start to appear in this. And then if we do the work, we can go out at the end of it. Every lesson, we can do a 10-minute game. It's broken it down into short enough intervals. It might even be 20 minutes of hard work. Then we can go out, and then you slowly increase the working load. And then what happens is, because I'm no longer trying to behavior manage. I'm not using my voice at all. I'm not creating that authority figure. I'm just drawing crack in it. And the kids who really want to play dodgeball will be like, shh, be quiet. They're doing the behavior management for themselves. I'm putting the crack in that. The other kids who are also wanting to disengage and stuff, they can see the reward right there. There's a timer. It's ticking down. It might just be 10 minutes of hard work. And then over time, slowly increasing that work. I don't even talk when I put the crack in. I turn away, put a little bit of a crack, and the kids manage it themselves. Another thing too is, just from personal experience, it's when you go into a community, the way that you form the connection is, firstly, you ask the elders, or you talk to the people about the stories and the dream time that's in the area. And you ask them, oh, so where's your family? Where do you live? What's over this area? What's that? You're forming that connection through that. The next best thing to do is start to learn the languages that are there and speak and try to use those languages. You'll see the best results with any of these remote communities if you learn language and you show, I care, I want to empower you by teaching you in your own language, because the English language comes with it a connection of terrible horrors that transpired over the last 300, 400 years, I can remember. That language comes with it a huge barrier in itself. And when you've got ESL students who are already like disconnected in the classroom, trying to understand what someone's saying, like they might be proficient in it, it's still speaking in a foreign dialect, because there's still a lot of trauma that's connected to learning English and understanding that okay, why am I learning English? Because my own culture just got stood on. And this is one of the unfortunate things, and I don't mean to mean any offense in saying this, but it's, if you honestly made enough of a connection with the students to learn all of the, like some of the stories around the area, and got to learn their language, to say hello, goodbye, how are you, starting to learn about the different names of the animals and the fruits and the area, what food is in the area, could you tell me about your culture and your or this, what's that mountain over there, like what's the Dreamtime story for that, like can you tell me these stories so I can share them with other people? And like I'm no genius. It's terribly difficult to learn another language. Like I'm only just learning to speak a little bit of Volpri, and it's
Tough.
my own ability. It's difficult on top of all the work that you've done, and teachers are overstressed. What we do with Gudjela is that we make it so we divide our methodology into 3 sections, and it's belonging, being, and then becoming. In the belonging stage, we make sure that we're connecting with the students, we're taking down all the barriers of trauma, we're forming a relationship with them strong enough that they look to us not out of an authority figure, but they're like, this person genuinely cares about me and wants what's best for me, so I'm going to listen to what they have to say. If you're coming from a family where you don't receive care and you're not used to people actually giving you the time and energy and compassion, then you're not going to open up just to anyone that comes in and just talks to you on that. So while we're doing that belonging stage, we're making sure that we're getting to know everything about them. So we always get the students to do a mind map and just either draw, or they can talk us through it and we'll write if they're not very good at writing, or they can do a video if they want. But normally it's just that mind map of everything about you. What's your identity? What constructs your identity? And it's very heartbreaking that the majority of students that we work with at the beginning just go, I don't know. What do you mean? Why do I have to do that? Why is that important? It's like, well, if you don't know who you are, then what life are you living? If you're not aligning your life and living out who you want to be and what you're doing, then you're just a secondary character in someone else's story. And you're just going along with the crowd. I say this speaking from experience because I never knew what I really wanted in life until I spent the time and unpacked this and did this with myself and really dove into who I am. And so by doing that with Gudjela, with the kids, and over time we get to know more and more and we add more and more to this identity wall. We form a far larger connection with those students. And then we build on that so that each of our students that are in there, we do personalized learning plans for them based on what they like, their interests, what they're good at, areas that they could work on. And we created a like a check-in, and it's like, how are you feeling today? What did you eat last night? Did you sleep much last night? How often do you think about your future? And what are your dreams? And like, so over the time that we spend with them, a lot of the time it goes from, I never think about my future. I had a bad sleep, didn't eat much. Today I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. And that when we slowly start to teach the strategies of like just basic mindfulness, being at peace and how you can form self-belief, then you see those start to change over time. When we first walked into one of the classes, for example, every single student on that thing put, I don't think I have a future, or I don't think about my future. And it's, okay, if you're not thinking about your future, then everything we're doing right now is meaningless. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's not being connected to something that's powerful and driving you forward. Yes, you might have a good day in class where you're doing the work, but the next day you'll come back in and you won't be able to connect that to today. Every single day is just a new day you're rocking up to school. When you can understand who I am and why it's important that I'm here and where am I going, then you can connect that to all the different work that you're doing within the class. And so an example with science and chemistry, so we talk about the makeup of the universe, and that if we look at it on the smallest level, everything is just frequency and vibration oscillating at different speeds. And then we go into talking about what makes up us, like, who are you? What's the construct that makes humans? Like, why is this important to know? Because what keeps us alive and healthy? Like, you're a footy player or you're an artist. Your mind's not going to be working properly at these things that you love to do if you're not looking after your health. Why do we look after our health? Because if we're not healthy, we'll be sick. And so that's just a bland example, but it's once we understand, like, explicitly, like, who's this person, this young person sitting in front of me? One of the students, it was didn't do any work, would never smile, just sit in the back of the class. And all the other teachers said, oh, he never talks. So I spent time to get to know this young lad, and then it turns out that he actually had a surgery on his throat when he was younger, so it hurt for him to speak too loudly. Yeah, and he said, like, very quietly, "Yeah, I can talk, but I can't talk loud."
Oh my God.
So when they say speak in front of the class or what's an answer and stuff, he was just so sick of people asking him that without even understanding why he wasn't speaking. This was on the student write-up that gets passed through to teach the teacher. It's like, won't speak much, doesn't like new things. And it's the same thing with all the students in your classroom. Like, how well do you really know those students? I guarantee you, if someone doesn't give me the time of day, then I'm not going to give you the time of day. Like, I'm a nice person, and like, yes, I'll help anyone if they are in need. But people are busy. People have their own lives, their own dreams, their own issues and things that are going on at home. So if you start to get to know the students more, then you're able to make it meaningful. So the next stage is the being. And in the being stage is what we teach. We teach about resilience. We teach about self-discipline and self-belief. We teach about the two different masks that people wear. The one that the world sees, and then your own identity of who you are underneath the mask. And if you don't realize who you are underneath all of the external validating things that our ego loves to walk around and be a part of, then you're going to be engaging in things that don't make who you really are happy. And we see with the students, especially in the kids that just jump up and walk out. It's like your friends are jumping up and walking out, and you might be bored as well, and that's understandable. But if you're just following the crowd, then years later, when you finally have this realization that, oh wow, I was only validating my external identity, I wasn't actually doing things for myself on the inside, then people are often filled with a huge amount of regret because they haven't been doing anything that is meaningful for them. So the reason that we teach about your identity and then resilience and self-discipline is the resilience part is that life's hard. Like when you come to this realization, it's life's hard. But if I do hard things, then everything becomes easier. Whereas the alternative is, okay, I'm going to do easy things. I'm going to get up a class, walk out. I'm going to skip out. What happens with that? If you constantly seek out easy things, one day it'll reach a point where everything's too hard. But if you constantly look at something that's difficult and hard and go, this is my opportunity to grow. If you can build that, foster that mindset inside someone, then more doors of opportunity open. And we normally
actually foster that mindset. There things that you, or obviously there are things that you do, but are you more targeting it from a mindset point of view or from literally like tangible activities that are trying to get them out and be more resilient?
So we take like both. We pick them up every afternoon and take them to the gym or to the river, and we do workouts because there's nothing better to teach someone about resilience and what you're actually capable of than working out and or getting down on country in the river. And we got tires that we drag behind. We don't have any like fancy gym equipment, but it's
tire is enough. Let me tell you, that's like intense.
Yeah, it was amazing the other day. One of the kids was like, "Oh, I think I'm going to throw up," and he was looking for like us to baby him or like give him like, "Oh, are you okay?" And we were like, "Yes." And we said 90% of people will never push themselves to fail to their limit. 90% of people will literally never understand what their body is truly capable of with the mind nor the physical. You've just pushed yourself to throw up. And I said, when I used to do that, I used to be a 400-meter sprinter. Like we do at training, we do 200s. I'd throw up after, and the coach would be like, "Get back in." It's like, ooh. But
I guess disclaimer would be, this kid's potential. Like, if they're gonna vomit. You're like, I know you can do more, instead of someone who's like on the verge of dying.
Oh no, yeah.
I think that was quite apparent, but I just thought that was funny to make a disclaimer anyway.
There are many lessons that you can teach in resilience, especially as if you want to develop resilience, you can start developing it straight away with looking at something that you might not want to do, especially in class. You've got a few more questions left on that test. If you push through, you're going to be developing a little bit more resilience because it's a difficult thing. You don't like it. And I tell the kids, I'm like, when you leave school, you will have forms that you have to fill out. There are taxes. There are no escaping this. If you get good at filling out forms, they won't bother you at all. Another thing with the honesty, like the kids in math, they're like, "Why are we doing algebra?" And I'll say, honestly, I've never used algebra once in my life since I left school. And if I was going to use it right now, I'd just type it into a calculator or I'd ask ChatGPT. And they say, "Well, what's it teaching me?" And I say, it's teaching you to get good at things that you don't really want to do, but you have to anyway, because life's filled with that. Like it's expanding your mind on how you can computate different tasks and stuff, which then transfers into other things that you can also use.
That's true, because the students, when I was doing placement and just happened to be teaching maths class, and I heard this podcast way back of it teaching us not just resilience, but problem solving, critical thinking in a different way. It's like when we say logical, I guess, is a loaded word, but logic in the way that we're talking about mathematical logic. It's getting us to think and start with a problem, get given some clues, and all to work backwards. That sort of skill. Yeah. And it's true, not many students actually get told explicitly why. It's just through the default of it being a compulsory subject that a lot of them just understand has some importance, but just not sure why.
Yeah, I speak from my own experience and my friends. In math, I remember trying really hard and then I was like, yes, like I'm getting all this stuff done. And then I was like, wait, why am I doing this? And unfortunately, when I had that thought, I stop trying. And I didn't have this conversation with anyone. I didn't understand. I wasn't like, oh, there's something deeper here going on. I hear it all the time. No, you've got to do this. You have to do this. So do it. It's like, I don't have to do anything, buddy. Like, that's the attitude these days. It's like, what?
It's true. I've seen it. Yeah. And so with your students who you're consistent, do you have a consistent cohort at the moment?
Yes. So we've got 2 classes at Centralian Senior College, 1 class at Larapinta Primary School, 1 class at Breitling Primary School. We've just signed Centralian Middle School, and then we're out at Niripi, which is a remote community about 6 hours northwest of Alice Springs.
And how often do you see them?
So we try to see them, like, if we could, it would be 1 hour every day. That would be optimal.
That would be ideal.
But we can't do that because we have to fit in with the timetables that are at school. So we normally find the best results if we see them twice a week. Mm-hmm. 1 time a week, it's kind of, you're building that relationship, then it slips away again. Then you come in again, it's a bit less. And with that time, we always like go in with the same cohorts. It's been incredible to see the change in these young people. Like, I can give an example from one of their reports that was passed to me to read. And like it said, will not engage in any physical activity, does not like change, won't do anything new. That person is now coming to the gym every single afternoon with us, like messages me, are we going to the gym? Like, sits in class. When I first walked in, he was hunched over, head down, not engaging in the environment around him, which, if you look at body language, would mean that insecurities, anxious, not wanting to engage with the environment around him because it's too much, overwhelming. That person's now sitting in class, leaning back, looking around, like engaging with all the different topics that we're talking about, asking to learn more. Because we also teach about basic nutrition. How can you cook a steak? Okay. How can you cook a steak nicely so it's juicy on the inside? So, like, sear the outsides, put it in the oven for about 15 minutes, like put some lime and stuff on the day before if you want to make it really juicy in that. Like, just the most basic things that people overlook. Because if you get the foundation right, then you can set yourself up to go anywhere. Like, especially the year 6s, because we teach the year 6s about metacognition, philosophy, Socrates, and then just the basic neuroscience of like what happens to your brain when you're experiencing stress, PTSD, anxiety. And I say, you're going to be doing exams when you're in high school. And I used to always walk into an exam and my anxiety would just take over. And I always thought that it was such a terrible representation of my own intellect, because I couldn't think in an exam. I was like, ooh, I literally failed most of the exams I did. I had to resit it with the teacher after and have a chat. Yeah. And I'm like, this doesn't show my intellect whatsoever. So what happens is, and I use Bessel van der Kolk's example from The Body Keeps the Score, just because it's basic enough that we can teach that to the year 6s and like the high school one. And we talk about how the prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, our logical brain, tends to switch off in these high stressful environments when our alarm systems are going off. He says that the emotional brain takes over, which is the brainstem and the limbic system, where our amygdala's alarm system is going off. And so what happens in that state is we're putting ourselves into the fight, flight, or freeze state. We're getting ready for something to happen. And we say to the kids, like, okay, they're like, oh, well, why does that happen though? And we give a really basic example. I say, you had 2 ancestors. They were both walking through the bush. They both saw a brown snake. One of them said, hey, look at that brown snake, and was bitten. And the other one jumped away from that brown snake. The one that jumped away passed on their genes and their DNA. And that's literally leading into why we have these incredible reactions to get out of these stressful situations. Then later, other things tended to happen. So it could be that freezing in a situation is better. And you see this a lot with Indigenous people too, that when authority is introduced, they'll tend to freeze and not speak and remove themselves from it. They might be physically standing there, but they've distanced themselves on the inside. It's proven that you can't learn when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze state. Yeah. And then over generations of people coming from adverse childhood experiences and being in dangerous situations, their fuse, where it how long it takes the body to go into that panicked hyper arousal state where they're in a defensive, they're emotional brain, which is reactions, is taking over. Their logical brain, which is thinking, takes a little bit longer, and that's taking a back seat. The way that we explain it is the logical brain will take the back seat in the car, and the one who's driving is the emotional brain driving around. If you've got students that are in that situation, they're not taking in anything that you're saying. And this is why you have students constantly going back to the principal's office, and the principal says, "We had this conversation yesterday. You're in trouble." Mate, walking to the principal's office, that kid's already going, switching off. Or it's, "No, I'm sick of this." Their alarm system is starting to be triggered. So when you go in there, it's going in one ear out the other. Like, you're having those conversations multiple times with those students. So then you teach the kids, okay, you're highly anxious, or you're in this certain situation, might be at home, especially when there's domestic violence or alcohol involved. Like, if you're not drinking and that the other people are, you're really hyper aroused. Like, if you're frozen, you're stuck there. If you run away, good. If you have the fight triggered, so you fight, that's terrible as well. So what are the things you can do to take your mindset out of that? Because this is going to help you in every facet of life. Like, regardless, if you can switch from that being controlled by your emotions to being, no, my emotions might say this, but I have self-discipline, and it doesn't matter. I'm tired, it doesn't matter. Like, I said I was going to do this, or I'm in a situation where this is very dangerous and I'm afraid, or I'm highly anxious, or you're in an exam and you can't concentrate. Oh, something that I love, it's called just box breathing. So it's you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds. And by breathing slower, it's decreasing the heart rate, sending a message to the brain that, hey, it's all right. And you can do that. Yeah. And it's incredible. When I was at nationals for 400-meter sprint, I was at the start line, and I remember being so anxious, and I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I wasn't taught how to lower those stress levels and that, or like what to do when you're really hyper anxious. Oh no, it was the 800-meter, and I'd gone around the first lap, and I was sitting in third behind the Sinclair twins, they went on to run for Australia. And
oh no way, okay.
yeah, I remember being so anxious that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, because it was just all by myself out there. So sitting in that spot, I just stopped, slowed all the way down, finished the race like a minute later than everyone else. And like, I walked off, and the coach was like, I've never seen you do that in your life. What? And I just felt so numb. And I was just like having that panic attack almost of being so anxious. From that experience is why I wanted to teach about what we can do in that situation, because I imagine there would be countless people that have been in similar situations and then said, oh, I'm not going to follow through with this opportunity, because their anxiety or their emotional brain had taken the wheel. If I had the mindset now, I would have just done some nice breathing before. I would have been able to align what I was doing, because I also hadn't connected the benefits of doing athletics and that with my own life and stuff. I was just doing it because I was good at it, and people told me to do it. If I'd had these opportunities and to get to know myself better, and to know like the people around me better, and had strategies to calm down my alarm system, then who knows? Like, I might have kept running. It would have been incredibly enjoyable regardless, because looking back, I did love it. It was just that I was unsure of who I was at the time and what I was doing. So going on to the next part that we teach about with self-belief, we teach the kids that you can become absolutely anything that you dream of, but you have to have the discipline to wake up, to meet it every day, and the resilience to get through that. But a lot of students don't believe in themselves, especially if you come from a traumatized or like traumatic childhood, or if you're neurodiverse. Like, I can't speak for everyone, but a majority of students don't believe in themselves or their abilities. One, because maybe they've never had that realization. Oh my goodness, I am powerful. I can do these things. Or two, that you can see that you're different to someone else. When I was being teased in high school, like every day, I was always just like, why are these people teasing me? I would hate to make someone else feel terrible like that. I was like, how are we different? Maybe I'm just different. Maybe there's something wrong about me. Maybe that's why everyone teases me. Maybe they're right. Do you know what I mean? Like that seeped in over the time. But now it's like, I want to be different. I don't want to be like everyone else. I love that I'm unique. And that's what we teach the kids about, that teach the kids in Gudjela, that like you are incredibly unique. Don't try to fit the shoe. Like let everyone else fit the shoe. You can go on to be whatever you want.
That is so nice to be able to have you guys be that presence to at least highlight to them that they are more than potentially what they think they are. There are so many internal barriers. I'm curious how you start to even begin the momentum. It's so hard when it's an internal struggle. How do you actually sort of reach in there and start to change that narrative?
So one of the things that I say to the students about the power of your mind, I say your mind is so powerful. It can create the reality around you, or it can destroy it for you. And I say, look around this room. Every single thing in this room, you can create anything, but you have to believe in challenging. Life is challenging. But if we see challenges as gifts from the universe rather than why do I face this again? A gift to grow, and then we also have the resilience to keep overcoming that, then you can truly achieve anything. Like that's one of the conversations that we have to start the flow of that.
That progress must be long. I'm curious to see how long that progress might take and what you've seen in your work so far.
The quickest I've ever seen the change happen is probably about 1 month. The longest it's ever taken is 12 weeks, because they have chosen to take on these new values and beliefs.
With that 12-week student, what did that actually look like? What did that journey look like?
It was constant consistency, showing up every single day, and not because this person came from a very traumatic background, was showing up every single day and not budging on who you really are and not changing. They might literally say F you, and it's understanding, okay, I'm not going to internalize any of that. That's just that situation. The next situation, which might be the next sentence, going, hey, you all right? I'm here for you. Do you want to go and have a chalk, or do you want to go for a walk? Let's unpack this. Like, what's going on? The consistency, because if people haven't had consistency in their life and they've had people come in and try to help and it hasn't worked, people form those bigger and bigger barriers. So it'd mainly be slowly chipping away at those barriers. And I have this gauge too, which I work with. It's every negative experience that you have with students. So if we have a gauge and it's 1 to 10, 10 is they'll do anything that you want. They'll do the behavior management for you. They'll message you for gym. And 1 being you've lost it completely. Every interaction that you have with a student gives you, and if it's a positive interaction, it gives you 1 point. If it's a negative interaction, it's -10, depending on the severity. So if there's someone that's come from a very traumatic background and has been passed around different foster homes, it's a 10 every time there's a negative thing. You've got to work it all the way back up. The better that you build the relationship with them, the less that negative impacts. So it gets to the point where I've got students that like would be eating terrible food in class, like McDonald's and that. And instead of just being happy-go-lucky, like positive, I'll be like, that food is terrible for you. I'm being completely honest, just throw that in the bin. Having a more of a firm approach, you're allowed to do that only once you've taken down the barriers, because that firm chat, which in the past would have just gone alarm system, bang, I'm leaving, now only goes, oh, I'm a little bit annoyed at that, but you're right. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like
God,
they want
having to throw the McChicken in the bin. That's
Yeah.
definitely self-discipline.
Oh yeah. One of the kids, now, oh my goodness, I came to class and he's like, Jerry, this is for you. And I was like, what is it? He's like, a teacher came in to give us lollies, but I didn't want to eat it and gave it to me. Yeah.
That's big. But also he wants you now to change on your values. That'd be funny. Pass the baton on. I can't do it, but maybe you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's wow, that's a big change, especially when they're still like teenagers. That's exactly the
Yeah.
sustenance that they love.
Well, we tell them exactly how it is. I say, do you know what kills the most people around the world? They go, no. I say, sugar. Straight out. Like diabetes, especially with Indigenous people. It is, as you would know, on the communities, it is, oh, it breaks my heart and infuriates me that the shops there are selling Coke and pies and all of this trash food. You're slowly killing people. You're just doing it, and because it's so slow, you're not emotionally connected to it. It is very, very upsetting. But that's with the self-discipline and that we're teaching with these kids. And I always say to the kids, like, if it's been done by someone else, then it's fair game. You can do it too. If it hasn't been done by someone else, then maybe that's why you're here, to do something that has never been done. We speak to the kids like they're adults. We don't baby them, especially with the younger ones in the primary school. They really respond well to that. When we're like I'll put prefrontal cortex for the because we what we do is we draw the dot, we draw it. We also bring in little brain models, and then we talk about it as well. And then we get the kids to feel their own brain, their own heads of where these areas are, so that we're ticking off all the different styles of learning. We break it into different levels. So we just say this is the thinking brain, but then we also put prefrontal cortex there. And like we talk about what we do lessons on philosophy with Socrates, and we talk about how his quote, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was, when I was young, I thought I knew everything. When I grew a little bit older, I realized that I didn't know much. And laying here on my deathbed, I realize now that I know nothing. And then we get the kids to unpack that. Like, what does this mean? And we get students who might be more intelligent in the class because they've been reading since they were younger against students that haven't been reading. You can see the difference. It's huge. But what also comes with that is an ego, where it's you'll be telling things and the kid will go, oh, I already know this. It's like, no, you don't, buddy. No, but you don't say that. but so to quash that ego, we talk about philosophy and Socrates about the more that you learn about the universe, the more you realize how expansive the knowledge of the universe is, and that you actually know less and less and less because the horizon of what's all knowledge out there grows so much faster than how you can understand more about the universe. So this is a nice realization because it goes, the more that to be perceived as a very intellectually smart person, then I have to come to the realization that I know nothing. I really know very little about the world around me, opposed to being this egocentric view where it's I understand, I know heaps because I'm smarter than the people around me, so I'm incredibly intelligent. I see this unfortunately a lot of times with people who, not everyone, but some people who do their PhD or doctorate, they falsely believe that because they've climbed so hard on one educational pillar that intelligence stretches over everything else. So it's again with the looking inside and understanding that we're all just humans having a human experience and slowly learning and piecing together what the universe and the world is constructed of around us. And if we can get over that barrier of our ego and wanting to impress those around us because of our external mask, and we go, oh no, but like I don't know much, then that helps our entire learning and education because we realize, okay, if I walk around with my cup full, I can't fit anything else in there. But if I walk around and I'm eager to learn, then every single thing could possibly help me in one facet or another. Like
well, it's just to keep that open-mindedness, that curiosity for learning, but also, you know, that lifelong learning that adults continually learn, continually grow, continually make mistakes, but end up 90 years old still being like big-eyed and just full of wonder because there is so much new stuff happening all the time. Right now, we're going to wrap up this episode with some rapid fire. I mean, I say rapid fire, but maybe some things might be a little bit too loaded for that. But you know what? We'll try. Number one is any book recommendations.
Oh, for people that have experienced trauma, it would be The Body Keeps the Score, but it is incredibly by Bessel van der Kolk. It's incredibly loaded though, so I'd honestly talk to a GP or your psychologist before you read it because it does
Okay.
have incredibly triggering things. And I remember listening to it in the car, and I like pulled over. I was like, oh,
Oh
I'm so triggered
no.
right now, like
Yeah,
tearing
yeah.
up. I was like, oh my goodness. So please, yeah, that one is incredible. But if you are struggling, then listen to like go and talk to someone before you read that one. The other one is just to get the basic understanding would be that Yuval Noah Harari Sapiens. Like it's got such a lovely wrap up of our own history and who we are, and it's so nice to connect with the greater human race and understand like this is our collective history and this is our planet. Because if we can zoom out and gain perspective on we're on this tiny orb in the middle of a solar system, in the middle of a galaxy,
Mhm.
and we see our entire history together, then it can enable us to empathize with others more. I guess those two books would be incredible. Like and for people that don't like to read, like I always struggled with reading. I never learned how to read. It was only a couple of years ago I realized you didn't have to say the word in your head
Mhm.
and then go to the next word and say the word in your head. That you can just not do that and skim. I only just learned that. So what I do is I listen to audiobooks while I go for a walk or while I'm going for a drive, and I've never been able to consume knowledge like that. It's been
Ooh,
amazing.
audiobook recommendation.
Oh, it would be this was amazing. It actually help me to heal a little bit because they give you a meditation that you can do at any age, and it takes you back and helps you to see the part of you that's stuck in the past, that traumatized part, and to take that part of you to the future with you now. And it's been incredibly powerful, and I've used it multiple times. And I would recommend this to anyone that's been dealing with something that they've been holding on to for a long time. And it's that The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, Wiest.
Ooh, okay. I've never heard that one. Interesting. I'll
Absolutely
unpack it.
incredible.
Probably can't drive while I listen to it, maybe. The next rapid fire is any educator or organization that you look up to and potentially I could interview in the future.
Probably King's Narrative here in Alice Springs. They're doing amazing work, and it'd be really insightful to get one of their staff or the founder to jump on and have a chat about what he has seen and what he is doing, because they're doing some really powerful stuff for their own Islander people here in Alice Springs, north of Alice Springs, and they're doing some cultural workshops with mining companies and that, like, which is
Oh, that's
yeah, really
really necessary. That's beyond necessary.
yeah, yeah.
Oof. Next up is any message to people who are not Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander, perhaps don't even work within education, but with your work, with our work as educators, we need to have allies for change outside of the system anyway. So,
Mm.
is there any message you'd like to actually give to the wider public?
That at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and we need to foster a sense of compassion and empathy for one another and our own journeys and cultural backgrounds, because everyone has their own culture, regardless of how many generations you've been living in the same place. If we gather a greater understanding, a collective understanding that we are all here to learn and grow and become all that we can be, and that we should be cheering one another on opposed to worrying about what other people have and you don't, then that can benefit not just your own smaller community, but the wider nation and the world. Because if we look at things from a negative experience, then we're going to have ourselves a negative experience. But if we try to bring about positivity and change and wanting to help one another, then that's going to be a far more positive experience. And I just want to say like one message to everyone. And I say this to the kids. It's if you say that you can't do something, or if you tell someone else they can't do something, you're predisposing them to failure, or you're placing a failure on yourself, a barrier. So if you always say, I can do this, or you can do this, and you're positive and you're optimistic, like it enables so much more to be achieved than if we place our own limitations on other people.
The last rapid fire. You have a really excellent quote on your website, so I thought I'd share it with everyone. Is the future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. Let me say that one more time. I love it so much. The future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. And I'd like to pass on to you, what future do you envision and what future are you trying to create?
That full quote, it's one that my mum told me, and it's the future is
Awesome.
it's the future is not some place we're going, but one we are creating. The paths to it have made, not found, and the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination. It's about taking that power back into your hands and not just being led along and following the crowd, and understanding that you have to be the craftsman of your destiny. Like you have to build the path in front of you. And on that journey, you become who you are meant to be in the future. You don't wake up one day and you're the dream that you've been having. Well, you do, but it's in the process of becoming that. That's when you become that version of yourself, and that's when the universe responds to that and places that reality around you. The future that I see is, like, I want Gudjela to be in every single community in Australia, and I want to help close the education and health gaps that are so prevalent with the Indigenous communities in Australia. And it would just be amazing to be able to, well, I'm going to see it, but it's going to be so amazing to see what happens with these students in the future that have been through our program, and how they'll be able to look at life with optimism and self-belief and self-determination, to walk towards challenges as gifts and opportunities to grow, opposed to seeing a challenge as a difficult thing that they have to do. So I just want to be able to share these teachings with as many people as I can, because they're what got me out of a place I didn't think I'd come back from.
And then at this very moment, Geraden's mum walks in and with her brings some quotes that the students wrote. Thank the Lord, they are gorgeous.
Interesting,
this is the year 6 people. This is a year 5 student, and then I'll read the next one. So it's, Gudjela has taught me about teasing and not to retaliate when someone is teasing or bullying. It has also taught me about legacy, being grateful, and the comfortable and uncomfortable zones. Gudjela benefits me because it helps me with my emotions, sports, and how I can be a better person. I would recommend Gudjela to other schools to become a better person. They would learn about the things that we learn. I would like to keep coming to Gudjela because it really benefits me and my actions. And then this is another year 6 person. Gudjela has taught me how to open up to people, because before I didn't want people to know how I feel. And Gudjela has made me a better person. Yes, I want to keep coming because I want to be even better person, benefiting me by teaching me to never give up, by pushing through difficult things. And it has also taught me about my brain. Yes, this should go to other schools because it will help other people to feel better and do better in life.
Oh, well, if this isn't the exact, representation of what you're doing with the students, it's quite just amazing to see what the hard work that you're putting in and the heart that you are literally giving to the community. And it is such an honor to have had this conversation with you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.